What's going on, everybody? Marlon Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. Today we are looking at Detective Comics issue number 29. This issue came out in July of 1939, and we're looking at the overall third appearance of the Batman here, as Batman's going to come across this new villain. His name is Dr. Death, and he makes his first appearance in this issue. And so I'm so happy to go ahead and look at this issue with y'all today. Like I said in the past two videos that we've looked at, these old Batman comics, they were very short and to the point, because when Batman was published in these comics, we know that there were other stories within these comics as well. So Batman wasn't the main feature. He was just a part of the entire book, but there were other stories involved as well. So we got to give Bob Kane credit for this. I mean, he's the original artist for the Batman. And yes, Batman is going to come across a new villain, and the villain is Dr. Death. And so we see in the first panel here that Batman has already made a name for himself throughout the metropolis. He's a legendary figure already, just from what we've seen in the past two issues, taking down crime. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to turn to looking at this new scene here, where we're going to meet our arch villain, this main villain for this issue, and that is Dr. Death himself. His name is Dr. Carl Helford. That's his full name, and he has a servant that does his bidding as well, and his name is Jabba. And we're going to see exactly how he's going to use Jabba in these next few panels here as we look at this comic. We also learn that Dr. Death is this scientist, and he has his own laboratory, and he has discovered that the death by pollen extract is definite, and he's wanting to use it on any people that get in his way. And he's definitely also, for some reason, has something against the rich, and he wants the rich and the wealthy to pay him tribute. All the world's wealthiest people at this time, he wants them to pay him tribute, or they will meet their fate in death. And Jabba will be his main messenger. And so while we see Dr. Death is explaining this to Jabba, we see that there is one person that Jabba must eliminate first, or some of his henchmen must eliminate first, and that is the Batman. Because Batman is known, like we've seen in the first panel, that he's already this legendary hero and he needs to be taken down. And so Dr. Death then publishes something in the daily newspapers that will get the Batman's attention. So across the city, we see Bruce Wayne is reading this newspaper, and he comes across this publication that says, Batman, if you will go to General Post Office and ask for a letter addressed to John Jones, you will find a message of vital importance. So Bruce Wayne goes to the U.S. Post Office, and he asks if there's a letter addressed to John Jones. He reads the letter, and it says, Batman, at 10 p.m. tonight at Suite B on the 14th floor of the Beverly Apartments, I will commit a murder, and I defy you without the aid of the police to stop me. And so we definitely get Bruce Wayne thinking here, like, man, I got to go back and change real quick and settle this. Someone is trying to kill the Batman, and I definitely know that this must be a villain. So we see that Bruce Wayne returns to his house here, his mansion, and he's going to suit up as the Batman. Now, at this point, Batman still is riding in this red car. He does not have his classic Batmobile. He's just driving in a like a 1930s car, I guess. So that's pretty unique here. We see the very early stories of Batman, and he's definitely not what we're used to seeing here. So we see here that Batman is going to suit up. He is then going to arrive at the location to where he's supposed to meet, and he has his bat lasso here, and he also is going to be using these suction cups, these suction pads, to scale the walls or the buildings. And so that's what he's going to do. And he says, now for the penthouse. And so we see Batman is scaling the buildings here. And now he's at the penthouse garden roof. And this is where he's going to be met with a surprise. As we see the shadow in the moonlight here, there are two goons here that are going to try to sneak up and shoot Batman. So Batman creeps in here as he would, and then we see that these two goons, instead of just going ahead and shooting him, we see that instead they say, "Put him up, Batman, we've got you at last." But Batman dodges the gunfire. He then knocks over this statue here, causes this one guy to fall over, and he basically tumbles on this other guy. Batman then takes them down easily here, and he's like, "Who are you working for?" And he said, "We can't tell you. He'd kill us." And so he said, "You better tell me or I'll kill you." So Batman even says, basically threatening these guys here. Then we're met with Jabba here, and Jabba has a gun, and he says, "Good evening, Batman. Dr. Death sends his greetings." And then Jabba fires here, and he wings Batman. He doesn't kill the Batman here, but he definitely wings his shoulder here. So Batman falls to the ground, but Batman then uses one of his glass pellets full of gas and throws it at Jabba so that he can make his getaway here. So Batman is seen careening out of this window here. These guys are then going to try to follow the Batman, but Batman is too quick, and Batman uses his bat lasso here to get back to this rooftop of another building. Batman returns back to his car here, and he patches himself up. He knows that he needs to go to his family doctor so that he can get treated. And he also alerts the Daily Globe by he wants to put a public notice in the column saying, "I accept your challenge, Dr. Death, the Batman." And so we see that Bruce Wayne then goes to his family doctor. He tells the family doctor that he had accidentally shot himself, and the doctor believes it, I guess. But then we see the next morning that we see Dr. Death is so mad at his servants here that they should have been successful in taking down the Batman, but they weren't. So we see here that he's going to send Jabba here to then go after this John B. Van Smith character, and he wants him to use this death by pollen serum that he had developed, and he wants to blow it in the face of or on the back or something of this John Smith. So that's what we see Jabba going to do. Bruce Wayne, while he's driving his car, he sees Jabba, and he knows this is Jabba because he fought him the night before. And we see that Jabba then blows that pollen onto this John Smith character, but then we see Bruce Wayne comes to the aid of John Smith using a handkerchief here to cover his nose, and he says, "Do not breathe." So he saved the life of John Smith, and we see that Bruce Wayne is then going to follow Jabba here back to the location of where Dr. Death is located. And so we see Bruce Wayne suits up as Batman, and he's going to then settle a score with Dr. Death. So we see that Batman creeps on in to the lair of Dr. Death. He lassos Jabba here, so Jabba is put out of action, and we're going to see then that Dr. Death is going to try to escape through this press of a button. He drops into a secret chute, but Batman's going to follow. So we see that Batman is on the trail of Dr. Death. Dr. Death then goes to his laboratory, tries to use this this tube filled with chemicals here to throw at Batman here, but Batman then uses a fire extinguisher and throws it, hitting Dr. Death, and causes that tube to fall to the ground, and a burst of flames then erupts all around Dr. Death. Dr. Death, instead of crying out for help, is actually laughing and saying, "You fool." And that's pretty much how we end this issue. We think that Dr. Death died, but we're not too sure of that. And so, did Dr. Death really die in this issue? We're going to have to find out more as we continue to look at the next few issues of Detective Comics. We'll see if he makes another return But until next time, before we look at issue number 30, go ahead, give this video a like, comment down below what you liked about this issue, what you thought about these early issues of Batman, and until next time, keep reading comics.